First guest this morning is going to talk about President Trump and the issues that he is going to face in the G20 summit with President Xi of China as to how the Chinese tariffs are going. And according to Politico and other publications, ladies and gentlemen, if President Xi does not come to the G20 summit that President Trump is going to go to, and this is all about the tariffs that we've the United States have imposed upon the Chinese goods, well over 300 million. And this is contingent on whether or not he goes to the group of 20, the G20 summit. Well, it's not going to be good for us. It's not going to be good for them. And later we're going to talk with the interim head of the Department of Government at Tarleton State University, Dr. Nathaniel Cogley, an expert, and we'll have him on shortly. So stay with us. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to immediately go to the phones, and I want to say good morning to Dr. Nathaniel Cogley. How are you, Doc?
I'm good. Thanks for having me this morning.
This issue of the Chinese, and I should say, Doctor, and I'll do respect for a man of your learned ability. I just want to be politically correct here. This issue of the Chinese, the G20 summit and President Xi of China, give me your thoughts about that, especially on these issues of the tariffs. What are your thoughts?
Well, the issue with the tariffs is, it's common that a country would want to open up markets for its products, but also restrict foreign competition. Mm-hmm. And so it's a common thing in trade to try to make a free trade deal, but then find ways around it. And China's been doing that for a while. And President Trump's approach here is, to use tariffs as a blunt tool to try to get China to open its markets.
Tell me this. There is dispute on both sides of this issue from an ideological standpoint as to whether or not the use of tariffs. Trump likes it. Other politicians in Washington, Democrats and Republicans respectively, don't. You being an educated man, and I'm saying that in all due respect, what is the truth about the tariffs? Do they work? Do they not work for us common folk out here?
Well, tariffs do have the potential to work. Usually people that are always opposed to tariffs focus on the consumer prices. Mm-hmm. But those same free market people also say it's good if other countries open up their markets to our products. Well, how are you going to get that done if you don't have some sort of retaliatory measure? Also, tariffs affect where industrial investment is made.
Yes, sir.
And so we compete for capital investment. So tariffs can work. The only problem here is that the U.S. political cycle swings back and forth, so it's hard to have a long-term strategy, whereas China has a single-party regime, no divided
government. Yeah, he's President Xi, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. As I understand it, he's president for life now. Is that true?
Yeah, they removed term limits a couple years ago.
Okay. Now, it is, I've heard Bloomberg, I've heard from different venues that China traditionally consistently steals intellectual property. China is always cheating. Is that true, or is that an unfair assessment?
Yeah, China does what it can to force technology transfer and also create tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers and administrative complications. They also subsidize state-owned companies that unfairly compete. China does a lot of this. It is a communist regime, people seem to forget. And it has a long-term single-party strategy to, dominate certain market shares. And Trump expects this. China's going to be advocating for China. And, if you're not willing to walk from the table, or if you're not willing to reciprocate, you can't get anything out of it. Trump views that we do have an edge on the negotiations because of the trade imbalance. So if we're going to get in a tariff war with China, they have about $600 billion worth of goods coming to the U.S. versus only about $120 billion going to China. So if we both drop tariffs on each other, it's going to hurt their industries more than ours. They do hold a lot of treasuries, and they do have a more stable political environment. But
okay, I understand the logic, and you've illuminated it rather well for even common folk like me. But I don't understand so many countries from the research I've done China cheats everybody. Is that true, or is that an unfair assessment?
China will get away with what it can get away with. It's cheating. I mean, to some degree, we hurt ourselves. We have a rather
yes, sir,
illogical tax scheme. We tax domestic production, and then we wonder why production leaves. Consumption taxes are much more intelligent, a free trade environment, but that's, of course, 16th Amendment, 1913. That's something we do to ourselves, try to free trade with a lot of production taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, China is going to try to get over. It's kind of work in the national interest. And the only thing they're going to understand is reciprocal tariffs. It's just China can do more of a waiting game because Trump is a one-term president or two-term president, whereas President Xi has unlimited terms now, and even if he were to move, it'd go to someone in the same party who's been working with him closely. They have more stable policy plans that they can implement long-term strategy. China is going to advocate for China and try to take over as many industries as possible, at least to get as much market share.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been discussing the new China tariffs, and if President Xi skips the G20, with a very learned man. He's interim head of the Department of Government at Tarleton State University, Dr. Nathaniel Cogley. I want to thank you, sir, and thank you for joining Memphis Morning News.
Well, it was great, and they just dropped the interim from my title. So
okay, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, doctor. This is Memphis Morning News.